Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Eyes of the Opposition series, the show in which we take a look at the perspective of our opponents for the week. And of course, Arsenal this week travelled to the northwest to face Liverpool in what is easily Arsenal's toughest game of the season so far. Liverpool playing one more game than us, of course, winning the Super Cup in Europe and beating Norwich and Southampton on their way to equalling Arsenal's total of 6 points this season, are in fact the only two teams to do so, and that will lead us into the first question for sure. But the person who's going to be answering the questions this week, I'm very pleased to be joined by Ste Hoare of RedMenTv and ReadLiverpool. Really good sites, please do go check them out. All the information will be in the description. But Ste is here to answer plenty of questions, and as I mentioned already, that first question, being that Arsenal and Liverpool are the only teams currently on 6 points, how do you evaluate their starts to the new Premier League season?
I think you could describe both Liverpool and Arsenal starts as very similar, really, in that I don't think either have played as well as they can, and opposition teams may have had chances that on another day, if they convert, things look slightly different. But both have got absolutely unbelievable forward lines and firepower, and they can score goals. Do only need one chance. Look at Aubameyang, Salah, Mane, Firmino, Lacazette, just absolute star quality. So if you play it to a reasonable level over 90 minutes, the chances are those guys will put the ball in the back of the net. And I think that's kind of what's happened for both Liverpool and for Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal away at Newcastle with the Aubameyang goal. Burnley, Lacazette gets half a chance and scores. Aubameyang scores a very good goal as well. Even Liverpool, opening game of the season against Norwich. Norwich had a fair few chances and, could have really been in that game, but they were just blown away by the sheer quality of Liverpool's attackers. And Southampton were arguably the better team against Liverpool, but we scored two really, really, really good goals. And when you can do that against teams lower down the league, it's really hard for them to stay in the game. So yeah, I've been quietly impressed by the start of both Liverpool and Arsenal, but there's very much more to come from both teams.
No, I cannot disagree with anything that Ste has said there. I just think that both teams have played well so far, obviously winning all 6 points in their two fixtures I've mentioned, but a lot is still to come from both teams, and especially from Arsenal's new signings. Speaking of which, that is really where the similarities end between Arsenal and Liverpool. Arsenal spent a lot during the summer window, whereas Liverpool hardly spent anything, and I'm curious to know whether Ste thinks that this is a concern or not for Liverpool this season.
In an ideal world, I think Liverpool would or should have signed one more forward player. Obviously, Nicolas Pepe, who's now at Arsenal, was linked as well, but for whatever reason, whether it was monetary or whether it was they just couldn't find the right player, they didn't do that. To be honest, anyone we did buy rather would likely have been a backup player, unless they went and spent absolutely massive amounts of money on a midfield player. It's actually quite hard to see where anyone would have got into the Liverpool team. They've got an amazing back four. They've got arguably the best front three in Europe, or one of. Midfield, maybe they could have done a little bit here and there. Maybe they do lack somewhat of a creative player. But listen, a team goes and gets 97 points, wins the Champions League. It is difficult to improve on that. Personally, I think they should have bought at least one more forward, just because Mane, Salah, Firmino have played a lot of football. And while we do have backups in the likes of Origi, Shaqiri, even young Ryan Brewster, the drop-off is significant. I personally would have liked someone to fill that void, but it's easier said than done when you're gonna sign a player and say, come and play for Liverpool, but by the way, you're on the bench. Nicolas Pepe didn't go to Arsenal to be on the bench. He's gone because he thinks he's going to play. He probably wouldn't have broke into Liverpool's front three. He would have been a rotational piece. So I do sympathise with Jurgen Klopp and the board and the sporting team, etc. But I do think they've left themselves a little bit light, and we're kind of hoping that we can stay fit, injury free, and give the regular front three rests in maybe home games against teams we should beat anyway. But I don't think I'm overly concerned with the lack of investment, but it would have been nice to at least get one more, what I would call star quality player, just to perhaps bridge the gap between us and Man City, which is still there at the moment.
Now, the gap between Arsenal and Liverpool has always been considerable over the last couple of seasons or so, with Liverpool competing in the Champions League and competing for the title regularly, and Arsenal still, of course, trying to claw themselves back into those Champions League positions. And it's frustrating for Arsenal fans, but with a summer in which Liverpool, of course, haven't invested, as we've already talked about, and a summer in which Arsenal really have heavily invested, I'm curious, Dave, to know whether or not you think the gap has been lessened at all.
I still think the gap's pretty significant, if truth be told, but You know, it doesn't take a lot for a team to go from battling for fourth maybe to at least attempting to bridge that gap. Liverpool bridged a similar gap when they went from fourth place to second place. I'd be amazed if Arsenal finished above Liverpool or Manchester City, to be honest, but I could easily see them in the mix for third place and maybe getting a little bit closer to that top two. I think of all the signings that were made, David Luiz is the one who probably holds the key to that. Arsenal's defence, like I imagine everyone watching this knows, has been pretty much diabolical. You know, even your best defenders are probably just average to good defenders, if truth be told. You know, I quite like Holding, I quite like Socrates, but you know, they're not elite level players, they're just decent enough players. So David Luiz, if he can come in and add a bit of backbone to an Arsenal team that I think's been quite flaky for a number of years now, especially as centre half, then there's no reason why Arsenal can't do well. Like I say, they've got the firepower to trouble any team in the world. They've just kind of had a little bit of a soft underbelly. So if Luiz can come in and maybe help shore that up along with a few of the other additions, and you're looking for, you know, the players in midfield to probably add a little bit more bite as well. If Arsenal can do that, they won't get, you know, I think it's been easy to bully Arsenal at times and run through them. That could change. As like I say, Pepe will just add more dynamism to an already an amazing attacking line. So I think Arsenal will always score goals. The question is, will they be able to keep them out at the back? And it's you know, a lot of the emphasis has been placed on David Luiz to help sort that. So I think he's the key to Arsenal's season.
The words David Luiz and shoring up the defence aren't really two terms which I would have considered ever putting together. But when Ste says there that our defenders are probably just average defenders when the grand context of things, I can't disagree with that. Socrates is good. Holding has got a lot of potential. Chambers obviously coming back from playing at Fulham for a year. And Koscielny leaving. I can't disagree with what he's saying there. These defenders are not top class, but they're decent and they might be able to do a job for us, and you're hoping that the experience of David Luiz this season will help us with that. But obviously a player which left Arsenal a while ago and joined Liverpool is Alex Oxlade Chamberlain. Now, he didn't get to play too much last season because of injury, but I'm really intrigued to know, Ste, how sort of he has developed since leaving the Emirates and moving to Anfield.
It took a while, to be honest, for Chamberlain to settle. It took a few months to get used to Liverpool, how we play. To be honest, he kind of had a few bad habits from playing at Arsenal under the Wenger era. There was a few things that needed ironing out. Jurgen Klopp and his team, you know, got to work on Chamberlain, and unfortunately, before his injury a couple of years ago, he was absolutely flying. He was scoring big goals in big games. You know, he was starting Champions League semi-finals as a centre mid. He was scoring in games, you know, in quarter-final ties against Manchester City. He was actually playing really, really well, and obviously he then gets what was just a horrific knee injury, a really serious one that pretty much wrote off the end of that campaign, the whole of last season. And even now, he's only just returning to fitness and to form. He played in the Super Cup for half an hour as a winger and just looked like a fish out of water, to be honest. He wasn't good there at all. But he did play at the weekend against Southampton in midfield and was much, much better. So, like I say, I think he's been a very, very good signing for Liverpool. £35 million. In these days is a little bit of a snip if you think about it now. But I think there is more to come. He just needs to get fit again. He needs to get his sharpness back. But, like I say, before the injury and after his settling period, there was a time there where, you know, he was one of the first names on the sheet and he was having a massive impact on the team. So we're all hoping that he can get back to that level again, because he's clearly an excellent player. He comes across as a really good guy as well, which is helpful. So yeah, if he can stay fit and stay strong, you know, Liverpool didn't have him last year, and you talked earlier about, you know, making additions. He could be an extra addition to the side, and one who brings goals from midfield, which is something that Liverpool have lacked that time. So fingers crossed that he can stay fit, and he should have a very big impact on this season.
Oxlade Chamberlain was always someone I sort of liked at Arsenal during his time there, and I was definitely, I wouldn't say annoyed, but I was disappointed when he left, especially to move to one of Arsenal's key rivals in the Premier League season. But obviously he's moved on. He didn't have the best injury record at Arsenal, and that seemingly continued at Liverpool. So whilst I don't want him to do well from a perspective, and a selfish one as an Arsenal fan, obviously wishing the best as a fan of the guy in a certain way, as someone who I don't think treated Arsenal very poorly at all, even moving to one of Arsenal's rivals, unlike some other players that we've seen. But I'm intrigued to move back and sort of focus on the fixture in itself. Obviously, last game we played at Anfield wasn't particularly kind for Arsenal. In fact, Liverpool absolutely trounced us. I'm intrigued to think, Ste, if you believe that we'll see a repeat of that route or more of a cagey affair.
Honestly, I'm quite unsure about it. If Liverpool were at their best, I would imagine that they would fancy the chances of running through Arsenal again. But Liverpool haven't quite been at it. Arsenal have been pretty good as well. I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if there was another route, because I think Liverpool can do that to pretty much any team at home. I think anyone can rock up to Anfield and get a bit of a pasting, bar perhaps Man City. I think Liverpool are a level above everyone and can do that on their day. A lot of it will depend. Like I say, I do imagine both teams will score a goal, maybe even a couple of goals. It could be a really high-scoring game. Listen, Liverpool's front three can cause problems to even the best defences. And I like to say, there are still question marks over Arsenal. The flip side is also true. Liverpool's defence this season has conceded more shots and more really good chances than they have done in the previous year. So Arsenal will likely fancy their chances as well. I don't think it'll be an absolute 4-1, 5-1 route, but I do expect Liverpool to score at least a couple of goals, and then we'll see how Arsenal can respond to that.
Well, it not being a rout would be an improvement on last season. Certainly something that Arsenal, I don't say can be proud of, but can certainly look at it as improvement. But hopefully, from an Arsenal perspective, we'll see something better than that. And obviously leads on to talking about what you think, Ste, the score is going to be.
Like I say, this is a really tough one. It's hard to really know what I do. Like I say, I do think both teams will score. I think Liverpool will win 3-1, but with that third goal coming quite late. So I expect Arsenal to still be very much in the game, coming up to the last 10-15 minutes or whatever, but maybe Liverpool just nick one on the counter-attack and put it to bed. So I'm going to cautiously say 3-1 to Liverpool.
Very, very cautious. A cautious 3-1, if there is such a thing. My head is telling me something very similar. I still think that even though Arsenal have come a long way in terms of their attack, and definitely improvements in the defence since the last time we met at Liverpool, I just think that ultimately Anfield and the attacking line and the attacking quality and the defensive security that Liverpool now have means that they are still far and away above Arsenal at this current moment in time, which is a shame, but hopefully we'll be seeing that gap close over the next couple of seasons or so. But I'm going to be an optimist, as I always am. I think that Arsenal can still get something out of this game. They just need to get a little bit lucky and to, of course, take the chances when they come. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 personally. But my head is tending to agree on Ste's side there. And of course, you can check out all of Ste's stuff in the description. Please do go check out him on Twitter at Ste Hoare. And a huge thanks to him for tuning in and getting involved with the show as he has done. I'm hoping that you, as the listeners, have enjoyed the Q&A session on here. And if you have, please, of course, give it a like. Please subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on. And I'll see you again very, very soon for another one of these, hopefully this week. And of course, the press conference reaction. And then a reaction of the game after it completes, but it's probably a little bit after because I'm away this weekend, being a little bit selfish at a festival. But I'm sure you can forgive me that with the amount of content you've received the last few weeks or so. But tell me in the comments what you think in terms of a score prediction. Let me know how you think the game's going to go down, and I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.